Hello, welcome to another edition of Blending the Family, the podcast. I am your host, Tommy Maloney. Thank you so much for tuning in. When he graduated from 8th grade, Coach John Wooden, his father, gave him a card. And on this card it had it's called the 7-Point Creed. I want to start off the show with the 7-Point Creed. So number 1, be true to yourself. Number 2, help others. Number 3, make each day your masterpiece. Number 4, drink deeply from good books. Number 5, make friendship a fine art. Number 6, build shelter against a rainy day. And number 7, pray for guidance and give thanks for your blessings each day. And I'm going to start off with number 7 real quick and say, thank you. I am so blessed and honored that you've tuned into this podcast. We're talking part 2 on talking money. And if you heard the first best of Talking Money, you heard that Ann and I are going through the Dave Ramsey course. And again, not affiliated with Dave Ramsey, just letting you know this is what we're doing. And actually this past class, we're watching the video and Connor was with us, our son. And here are 3 things that we observed and he observed. Number 1, keeping track of your spending. And he was really getting that. He understands that. Number 2, and he was very animated about this, and animated, I should say, when he heard Dave Ramsey say credit cards are bad. And Connor agreed. And also, one thing I've noticed that Connor will definitely learn from spending that hour with us at church at the Dave Ramsey video was he's going to break the cycle of bad financial decisions his dad has been making, and hopefully I too will get out of this vicious cycle. So what you're going to be listening to was a second episode of Ann and I talking about our finances. And I hope you are learning from our mistakes. If you need to reach out to me, just contact me. Email tommy@blendingthefamily.com. Tommy@blendingthefamily.com. Also, check us out at Facebook, which is Blending the Families at Facebook. Twitter, Blended Family. And Instagram, Blended Family. Thanks for tuning in. Have an enjoyable rest of your day.
Welcome to Blending the Family, the podcast.
With your host, my bonus mom, Ann Stelling.
And my bonus dad, Tommy Maloney.
Blending the families, from divorce to dating with kids.
To the happy day, marriage.
Well, like the kids said at the beginning, welcome to another episode of Blending the Family. I am your co-host, Tommy Maloney.
And I'm Ann Stelling. Yes.
That's it?
That's it?
I'm surprised you're awake for this. Oh my gosh. Today, on this episode, we're going to talk about finances, the
Part
recap.
2.
I call it the recap. Why are you calling it part 2?
Because it's part 2.
If there was no part 1, technically it was just, we talk finances.
That would be part 1.
But it wasn't the title of part 1.
Yeah, but when is there ever a part 1 originally? I mean, that's like having the first annual something. You don't call it part 1 until you have a part 2.
Maybe you should go to sleep.
I might.
We had a huge response the first time we talked about finances, so we wanted to do a part 2 recap and talk about where we are, and we've grown since that last.
We have. Well, a lot of things came out of that podcast that a lot of those unspoken expectations, and it just really blew my mind, some of the stuff that we actually came out with. For example, when you said that you just expected that I was going to take over the finances because that's what Mary did and that's what your mom did. And I was like, Are you freaking kidding me? How many times did I have to say, I hate finances?
Yeah, but again, you're smarter than I am. So I just figured, why not have the smartest person in the room handle the money?
Yeah. I hated finances. I hated being in control of them. And that, I think, was what really came out and moved us forward.
Well, and it moved us forward big time, and that's where we really want to talk about today, this episode, about, maybe some ideas and suggestions that we, are using to maybe help you be able to get your finances in order. I mean, especially because, the whole point is, as a blended family, it's quite possible, like in our situation originally was, you had your bank accounts, I had my bank accounts. None shall the two pass and figure out, where we were each at as a family, where it was more of individual.
Right.
And so we had that conversation and went over to the bank and created, not just, our own accounts, but we have one joint account that we use to feed off, other things.
We're not completely done yet. So we have a joint account, and your paycheck goes into it. Mm-hmm. Mine does not yet. However, a lot of that's because I have set up direct payment of some major bills, such as the mortgage and a couple of the utilities, and just fearful of trying to move all that and having it not get paid 1 month.
Right, and that's, that's a logical, fear to have when you're trying to, again, take your bills and have them electronically be paid and, making sure there's money covered between the accounts. And, that's where, for you out there, that's where you have to sit down and have those talks, and you have to have that communication as far as, not necessarily who's paying what, but, how are we going to come together first and figure that out? Because that is for us, that was a huge piece of our relationship, is getting, because we both don't want to do the finances, but we have to. Unfortunately, we're adults.
I think one of the biggest things that helped us, as I said before, was just putting it all out on the table. Not just how much do you make, how much do you spend, but also what are your expectations around money? What role has money played for you in the past, and what are you wanting to do in this relationship? Because as we said in our first podcast, money is really power. The person who makes the most money has a bit of power over the other one in the relationship. Now, how that power is used is up to the couple. But I know for myself, it was definitely used against me in my first marriage.
Meaning,
there was definitely, was even verbalized specifically, at least once, I make the money, I pay the bills, therefore it's my house, my rules. That wasn't me saying it, that was my ex-spouse. And so, no matter what I did, even though I worked 40 hours a week and I kept the house and I did all of the housework, all of the raising the girls, all of the quote-unquote women's work, I was never going to be equal because I simply did not make the money he made.
So if somebody's listening to that and they're in that situation, male or female, where, again, like you were saying, whoever's making the most money has more of the power. My past relationship was the same thing. She made buku bucks, and she did have the power. So what advice would you give somebody in that situation where they do say that to their spouse? Hey, I'm making all the money. You need to, in that situation, your situation, do your woman's work and deal with it.
Well, if you can, sit down and have a conversation with them. If you can't, bring it to a third party who can maybe help the two of you see how destructive that type of relationship can be. And I'm not saying that it is always destructive. There are definitely folks that they're good with that. I don't want to make the money. I want to be the stay-at-home. Make sure I say this correctly. These are the people who want to just be taken care of. Okay, if that's you and your spouse wants to be the one to take care of you, more power to you. If it's causing issues in your relationship and you're feeling you're either feeling like you have all the power because you have all the money, or you're feeling like you have no power because the other person makes all the money and you have to ask for permission, then sitting down and talking to them. And if that doesn't work, trying to bring that up in counseling and try to work through it. Maybe they're just totally unaware of how they are. Maybe that was how they were brought up, and that's what they expect to happen. Such as in our case, you were brought up with a strong female role model who took care of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so you married somebody who was a strong role model who wanted to take care of everything, but then ended up very controlling. And so in the beginning, you were very, very much just wanting to hand over that control. You'd never dealt with it. It's outside of the realm of your comfort. And you were like, okay, fine. You handle it. Because I came into the relationship saying, I am never going to be in that position again. I will have say in the finances and whatnot. But I didn't want to be in control. I didn't want to have all the control and have at some point you being resentful of me because I'm sitting here saying, hey, you have to tell me when you spend money on something that you should be able to spend money on.
Well, and, quite honestly, that brings up some bad memories because that's how my first marriage was. And I'll never forget, I went out to lunch with a couple of my coworkers, and we just went to Denny's. And they're like, aren't you going to eat? I said, no. Like, why not? Aren't you hungry? Yeah. Well, why aren't you going to eat? Because I can't have at that time, my wife see that I spent money on food. They thought it was the most bizarre thing. And I was just in that position of the less I spend, the better. Or don't spend at all, the better. Because I would then have to... It was like being scolded as a child. What were you doing? Well, I was having lunch. Why? Why'd you have to spend money on lunch? Well, I was hungry. And so, again, my coworkers didn't get it. And that's why I would rarely would ever go out to lunch. Only if I had some spare change, after standing on the highway begging for some money at that time. But honestly, I would never go out. And they thought it was the most bizarre thing. I said, too afraid. I was too afraid to say anything.
But then I still don't understand why, when we came together, you were willing to hand that over.
Again, because I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to rock the boat. It goes back to, you can beat a dog, and, they cower. And I've been a beaten dog, and so therefore I didn't want to even bring it up. And so that's the majority of this point here is you have to have those tough conversations, from day one. Especially if you're going to a relationship, one spouse doesn't want to have kids. Those are tough conversations, and finances, it has to be one of the top conversations you have, period.
Absolutely. And just put it all out on the table, because, if you're afraid, if you do, the person's not going to like you and the relationship's going to be over, then quite honestly, the relationship's over. Mm-hmm. Because it's going to come out. Somebody's going to be resentful because of that unspoken expectation not being met, and the relationship's just going to be horrible. Absolutely need to talk about it and put it all out there. What are your expectations? Do you expect to have any say in the matter? Do you expect to pay half the bills? If you're the one who makes the most money, what are you going to do? Are you going to be the one to control everything, or how are you going to make things equal if that's what you and your partner decide?
See, and that's the key word, is that expectation. I was watching a quick little 30-second video from Darren Hardy, the publisher of Success Magazine. He was talking about expectations and in relationships. Everybody talks about, the expectation in relationship should be 50-50. Some will say, 51-49. Some will say 60-40, but expectations should be 100-0, because, the expectation is like with love. I mean, if you're loving that person, your expectation isn't always to receive it. But the bottom line is you have to set expectations up front. I mean, again, the financial piece, and, we're watching How I Met Your Mother. And Ted was talking about not wanting to move to New Jersey. He loved New York City. And, I know it's a sitcom, but, again, those are realistic conversations that some people might be too afraid to even bring up. And it goes back to day one. You got to have those talks. You got to, as hard as it could be, thinking this is my, last marriage I'm ever going to have. Those are tough conversations to have, but you have to have them.
Well, and also make sure that you understand that you may have expectations that even you're not aware of, or are aware of why you have them. A lot of it will go back to how you were brought up and what you saw your parents doing. If your dad was the one who made the money and he was the disciplinarian and whatever, and you're the male, and you're male in this relationship, that came out wrong too.
That's okay.
But you know what I mean. You may feel like that's what you have to do. Mm-hmm. You have to make the money for the family. I was just talking to somebody he just lost his job a little while ago. He's got a child living at home, an adult child living at home, and his wife is on, or could be on disability. She has a injury that doesn't allow her to work, and they never went and got the disability for the wife because he wanted to be able to take care of her. And this adult child that's living in the house doesn't contribute to the household expenses either, because Dad feels like he has to provide for everybody in his household. And it was just interesting to see that, because my thought was, well, even if you didn't need the disability, you should have done it anyways and banked that money, and now you wouldn't be in this position where you know, are broke and struggling and, you know, looking at the possibility of maybe going on public assistance or something, you know, and at the very least to have that adult kid start contributing to the family, you know, but that wasn't his belief. And so that's things that need to come out, and why, and, you know, what does that do for you as the individual, and what does that do for your family?
Well, and, you know, and those are even the conversations, not just you, but we all need to have with our kids as well. I mean, it's hard to model, you know, financial at times, but I think if we as parents can set, you know, expectations as well with the kids, you know, help them, you know, we're going to be doing a garage sale here next month, and, you know, the kids, we're talking about setting up a lemonade stand. That's perfect, you know, but at the same time, talk about, all right, so you've just, you know, you can kind of, I always like to, I mean, I love watching, you know, like Shark Tank and Mr. Wonderful there, and he talks about, he'll put, you know, he'll say, all right, I'll do the 15% at $100,000, but you have to give me, you know, $1 for everything you know, sell and residual and all that. And you sit there and go, that doesn't make sense. Why would you do that? Well, because they're trying to recoup the loss of the money he's giving out. Well, at the same time with kids, you know, when you set up a lemonade stand, you know, talk to them about, all right, how much does it cost to buy the lemonade? How much does it cost to buy the cups? You know, things like that. It's not just go to the store, buy it, and then sell it. It should be, you know, a life lesson right there.
Because kids don't get that. You're saying it's not, you just go to the store and buy it, because kids don't just buy it.
Right.
Mom and dad buy it.
Right.
So, you know, they get 100% of the profits, including the overhead. So,
but that's where I would venture to say to any parent whose kids are saying, well, I want to do a lemonade stand. Okay. You set up the lemonade stand. However, I get a quarter for every, or, you know, a percentage of every sale to recoup paying for the lemonade. I mean, I think it's a great life lesson, is that, you know, teaching kids not just what a dime looks like and what a quarter looks like, but how money works. Because it's right on point what you're saying is, you know, how were you raised? I mean, what was money like in your household? As far as, was it a healthy relationship, or was it, you know, even with struggles, there's still times where you kind of figure out, all right, what do we actually need versus what we actually want? So I think going back to, you know, how did your parents handle it? You know, it goes like to that old story of, you know, somebody's cooking Thanksgiving dinner and they did it a certain way, and they go back generations to find out, because they just didn't have the right size pot. You know, you got to break that cycle sooner or later. And I think that's where, you know, especially with blended families, when you have other, you know, adults connected to the kids and getting all these different messages as far as how money is spent and used and all that, trying to create a healthy relationship for the kids with money, and then hopefully they're going to take it, and then once they become parents and once they become adults, they'll actually create a healthier relationship than a lot of us have kind of screwed that up as teens and adults.
Well, to actually bring that point back around to the adults in the family, it is taking a look at how you were raised. And, not necessarily saying, well, this is how I was raised and therefore it's good enough. Take a look. Is this really how you and your new spouse want to do things? How was your new spouse raised? What are their backgrounds? What are their beliefs? And then between the two of you, how can you meld those two together to come up with what you as a couple want to move forward? And again, it could be anything from one couple being in total control, and that's what one of the couples being in total control, and that's what that couple wants, to having very equitable, they sit down once a week, they go through their spreadsheet, they pay all their bills together, and it's completely equal. So that's the important thing. It's just really taking a look and deciding what you want and what you don't want.
I think that's a great way to end it. Well, I hope, again, the financial piece has helped with all of you out there, because, as you heard the first time we talked about finances, now you're hearing, where we've come. For example, today we were depositing a check into our savings account, and we actually had goals, and that's probably something that you should do as well, is, set, again, it goes back to the expectations, but set goals, monthly goals, where you want to be. And once we saw the receipt today, we actually were ahead where we wanted to be for our goals with our savings. So, write things down, see where you want to be, and you have to communicate. I mean, I sound like a broken record for those that know what a record is, but the communication has to start from day one. Mm-hmm. You could have those lovey-dovey eyes and then go, all right, I want to marry you, but even prior to that, those hard conversations you've got to have, or else, unfortunately, you possibly could be down that path all over again.
Right. All right.
Well,
on that note.
Thanks for listening. Please, if you have any questions or comments, you can email us at info@blendingthefamily.com, or our Facebook page at Blending the Families. Mm-hmm. It's with an S. Facebook, Blending the Families. Twitter, Blending Family. Pinterest, Blending the Family. Blending Family. Blending Family also on Pinterest. That's what it is. Because it's just like Twitter. You have to have a smaller handle.
Gotcha.
All right. Thanks for listening. Have a great rest of your day, evening, whenever you're listening to this. Take care.